good morning, and welcome to the International Mastermind Think and Grow Rich show. My name is Galen Bingham. I am the leadership strategist, and I am so excited to come to you again as we discuss Napoleon Hill's classic book, Think and Grow Rich, originally written in 1937 as a compilation of success stories and philosophies that he accumulated from 500 of the most successful men of his day. And we get the benefit of reading this book and understanding those principles and leveraging them in our life and in our work. And we are excited to come to you every Saturday morning at 8 a.m. Eastern Standard Time with some principle, some element of this book, and we talk with guests. But today is a masterclass conversation. And, for a while there, I thought it was just going to be me sharing my insights, my perspective, pontificating on this book. But I was able to will back from Dubai Dr. Peter James. So, Dr. Peter, come on into the conversation, man. Welcome back. Welcome back.
Good morning, Galen Bigham. How are you today?
Doing well, man. Glad to have you back. It's been kind of cool riding this train by myself, but I'm glad to have company.
You've had the unicycle now. Now it's time to share the wheel a little bit, maybe add another seat. I'm glad to be here. Yes, I've been traveling a little bit there, Galen, different time zones, but excited to be back as we delve back on into Napoleon Hill's phenomenal work, Think and Grow Rich, specifically Chapter 6, Organized Planning. Galen, I am so excited to talk and hear about how you plan in your life a little bit deeply because what we discussed today may benefit someone who is listening, someone who is watching. And I'm hoping that some folks jump on into YouTube in order to participate, to ask questions, but also to share how you exercise organized planning in your life as well. So we're going to have a great show. I'm excited. What have you been up to there, Galen?
Man, I'll tell you, this has been a great couple of weeks. We've had some amazing conversations.
Nice.
Just we brought in Wyman Winbush
Ooh,
was here with us sharing his wisdom, and the wisdom broker never, ever, ever disappoints. So it was great to have him. Mr. Baptiste was part of this conversation, and he shared what he's done to leverage these principles in the businesses that he's run, and just the guests just continue to bring this conversation and these principles alive. Today, obviously, we're going to be closing out this conversation on organized planning. So, yeah, we're going to invite you to take part. We want this to be a conversation. So, definitely leave comments in the chat. And we may even give you an opportunity to join us on screen and actually be part of the show with this being a masterclass conversation. Thank you for joining us. I see Ms. 446 Smitty. Renetta Gordon, she's been hanging with us pretty tough throughout this
nice.
chapter. So definitely be sure that you're in this conversation and share this link with two or three people who you believe need to hear this conversation. It could be someone who is always talking about how to make their lives better. It could be just someone who's always complaining, and if you're tired of hearing them complain about things not going right, just send them the link and just say, hey, look, either do it or stop talking about it. I really don't care where you fall, but you're not going to continue to complain about things not working in your life and not doing anything about it. This is the place for them to get over that complaining with inactivity. So yeah. So before we get into this masterclass conversation about organized planning, because Dr. Peter, you do a number of different things, man. You're a professor. You've got some entrepreneurial efforts with coaching. You're a real estate magnate. I mean, you do a little bit of everything. I'm sure organized planning is a big part of how you make those things a reality. Without a strong plan, then again, you would just be talking about doing this someday, but you're actually making these happen. I would love to hear how important organized planning is to you.
It's such a good question. Thank you so much for asking though as well, Galen. I will say that it's an evolution. I don't have it mastered. This organized planning thing is something that I'm practicing, for lack of a better word. How do I continue to plan better? And if you go to page 105, chapter 6 of Napoleon Hill's Think and Grow Rich, when he begins to talk about organized planning, here's one of the first tips he has for us as we delve on into it. He says, you will now be instructed on how to build plans which will be practical. Namely, number one, ally yourself with a group of as many people as you may need to create and carry out your plan or plans for the accumulation of money. So that screams to me right off the top, I cannot do this alone. I cannot do this alone. Who can I incorporate? Who's like-minded around me? And you hear us talk about this a lot if you've listened to this show before. You've heard us say that who is in your mastermind? Who is your partner? Who is your coach? Who are you leaning on to help strengthen you this journey? Because by yourself, yeah, you can do some stuff. With others, you can do some phenomenal stuff. And so I make it a point to ally myself with strategic individuals in all those areas that you described there, Galen. So as I should not do this alone. That's the big part of this as we do that, Galen. And Galen, I am happy to say you are definitely one of my partners.
Oh, likewise. I mean, we hold each other accountable. We challenge each other to go
Yeah.
higher, and because that's the name of the game. And I just had a conversation, which we'll get into deeper on the other side of this, about how someone asked me, do you need a mastermind? Do you need a coach? And my answer to them is no, you don't need a mastermind. You don't need a coach. You will be just fine without a mastermind and without a coach. But the question is, are you okay with being just fine? Right? You will be just fine. Tiger Woods, his dad was a master trainer in the military. He was also a single handicap golfer himself. Tiger would have been just fine just hanging out with his dad. But when he decided that he wanted to be more than just fine in golf, he hired a coach. He allied himself around other people who were aspiring to be at the top of their game. Same thing with Kobe Bryant. Same thing with Bruce Lee. Same thing with everyone who decided that just fine wasn't good enough for them. So, you don't have to have a mastermind. You don't have to have an accountability partner. You don't
Yeah.
have to have a coach. You will be just fine without any of that. But the question is, are you okay with being just fine? And if you're not, then this is the place for you to start being better than just fine. Understanding and leveraging the principles of Think and Grow Rich in your life. And there are principles. So, Dr. Peter, share with everyone the principles that this thing sits in and how important it is to understand how everything works together.
Yeah, Galen, first of all, I love your thought. It made me think about it. And quite frankly, just fine is not good enough for me. I want to live life to the fullest. I really do. I want to enjoy it. I have a saying that when I get ready to die and my life is flashing before my eyes, I want to watch a great movie. I want to be phenomenal. And really, I live like that because I want to live life to the fullest. I want to enjoy it. I want to experience it. I want to give back to the fullest as well, right? Napoleon Hill in this text that we analyze on a regular basis talks a lot, gives us the recipe to a certain extent on how to live life to the fullest, not just from a financial perspective. So some of you who see this title, Think and Grow Rich, and get dismayed because it's only talking about money. Riches is not just about wealth of money, financial wealth. It's about a rich life. And I want to live a rich life. I got to ask you, do you want to live a rich life? And if you do, take a listen to this video really quick. He's going to talk about these principles that we dive into on a regular basis. Let's take a look.
Number 1 is desire. Napoleon Hill said that everything starts with a burning desire, a compelling reason for doing what it is we do. Step 2 is faith, having belief in our ability to attain that which we desire. Step 3 is what we call autosuggestion. Autosuggestion simply means being very intentional about the things that we are pouring into our thoughts, into our brains, and into our consciousness. Our brains, our minds will receive everything automatically, but we have to work extra hard to make sure that the positive things are what we are feeding ourselves, because those positive thoughts are going to turn into positive actions. Step number 4 is specialized knowledge. No one person knows everything, even about whatever their particular area of expertise might be. And the value of the mastermind principle is using the specialized knowledge of other people. Step number 5 is imagination, the workshop of the mind. Everything starts with our imagination and our thoughts, the burning desire to transform those thoughts into our reality. In order to do that, we have to take a look at step 6, which is organized planning. That is how we crystallize our desire into action, organizing ourselves. Having the thought and not acting on the thought isn't going to get us anywhere. We have the thought, we go through the organized planning to transform that thought into action. Step number 7 is decision. What Napoleon Hill said is the mastery of procrastination. Napoleon Hill said that the antidote to procrastination is simply to make a decision and then move on that decision. Step 8 is persistence. We have to have a sustained effort which is induced by our faith in order to achieve our goals. One of Napoleon Hill's books I love, even the title, 3 Feet from Gold. Those people who became rich during the gold rush in the wild, wild west days didn't do that because they were necessarily smarter or had better information than anyone else. It's because they stayed just a little bit longer. Sometimes people left when they were just literally 3 feet from gold. So hanging in there, being persistent, is step number 8. Step number 9, the power of the mastermind, the driving force. None of us can accomplish anything on our own. Everybody, I don't care who you are, from the most prominent person to the person who might be considered the lowest on the totem pole, everybody has someone who helped them get to where they are. And the power of the mastermind is being able to use those influences around us, use the thoughts, use the knowledge, use the exploration of other people to help us in achieving our goal. Step number 10, the mystery of sex transmutation. This title can be a little confusing, but essentially what the mystery of sex transmutation means is that we oftentimes in our society think of sex as being purely physical. It is absolutely physical, but what Napoleon Hill teaches us is that sex also has an emotional element, and that sex is the strongest of our desires. That if we can take our sexual energy, transform that into positive, creative influences, it can propel us to new heights. And so we spend quite a bit of time talking about the mystery of step 10, which is sex transmutation. Step number 11 is the subconscious mind, which Napoleon Hill tells us is the connecting leap between our human mind and the infinite intelligence, the source of all thought, the source of all creativity. Conscious mind, we spent some time talking about how we use that through the influence of autosuggestion and what we're feeding into our mind. Step number 12, which is the brain, the broadcasting and receiving station of thought. Final step number 13, the sixth sense, the door to the temple of wisdom. This is the final step through which infinite intelligence may and will communicate voluntarily without any effort from or demands by the individual. The principle is the apex of the philosophy. It can be assimilated, understood, and applied only by first mastering the other 12 principles.
Yeah, so I have to ask everyone, now that you've seen the principles a little bit, heard us talk about being just fine. I got to ask everyone, is just fine enough? Is just being fine enough? And if it is, or if it's not, what does organized planning look like in your life? I would love to hear a little bit about what that looks like for some of you who are listening, some of you who are watching. What are some small things you do to organize and plan your day, your week? And again, that's a good question for us to talk about a little bit, what that looks like for us on a daily, a weekly basis. You know, how do we approach the day? How do we approach the week? Let's start with you, Galen.
Yeah. I mean, we can get really, really tactical. And I love what you said on the other side of the video, that for me, this is an evolution, right?
Yeah.
It's a variety of, I'm going to try this. I'm going to give it a really legitimate shot. And if it doesn't work out, I'm going to tweak it and try something else. One of the things that I'm really focused on doing, because I can get overwhelmed. It's easy for me to get overwhelmed by the number of things that I want to accomplish. As you know, I've got some pretty outrageous, audacious goals, and it's easy for me to say, "Oh my God, I can't conquer this entire industry or this entire list in one day." So one of the things that I do pretty religiously is I pick 3 things that I'm going to do today, right? If
Mm.
I do nothing else, I'm going to do these 3 things. And I try to make sure that those 3 things are significantly moving towards my goals, right? It's easy for me to just kind of step into my day and let my inbox manage what I do. And and my day is just fine when I do that. But I find that at the end of the day, I haven't moved substantially closer to these bigger goals that I say that I'm trying to accomplish. So I've got a list of 10 major goals I'm trying to accomplish throughout the year, and that each day I try to make sure that I'm doing 3 things that's going to move me closer to accomplishing those goals. Like I said, as opposed to just letting my inbox rule my day. So I got to come back and ask you the same thing, man. What what
Yeah.
what can I steal from you that you do in order to be organized in your planning on a daily basis?
One of the first things, first things I want to mention, you mentioned as well, our inbox. Ooh, our email, right? Some of us live and die by our email, meaning that we feel like if it comes in the email, we have to address it right then. That's the priority in life. And so we live by our emails. We don't organize our emails. We just live by our emails. Literally, I talk to so many organizations, so many individuals within organizations, and you know, many of us find ourselves responding to emails late into the evening on our phones, on our laptops, on our desktops. We got to get back there because if it's there, it's making us feel uncomfortable. But really, is that allowing you to accomplish your goal, or are you just putting out everyone else's fire?
Mm.
Yeah, I said it. Are you putting out everyone else's fire, or really getting beyond your just fine, as I mentioned earlier, right? So actually, one of the things that I've really done, and this is actually a help from my assistant there, Galen, is that to organize my inbox so that it's not just there with all these emails popping in, that it's organized very strategically. And as I look at it a little bit, I have inboxes for the urgent stuff, the follow-ups, the stuff I need to schedule, some invoices I need to pay, it's very strategically detailed to organize. I'm organizing it so that the stuff that really is urgent, and even the stuff that's really urgent, there's no house that's burning down right now. So this is the stuff I need to address quicker than the other stuff. But in your inbox, is everything just quick? And that's something we all have to think about. And Galen did a great job of spurring my mind to think about our emails, which we live by. And if you're like me, I won't even talk about how many different email accounts I have. That's a whole nother conversation. However, I have to ask everyone, as you think about, as you reflect on your email, what does it look like? Galen, what does yours look like?
Yeah, well, my email is atrocious. But you really do have me thinking about how I approach or how I attempt to approach this organized planning because
Yeah,
I actually started with, and we're going to talk about this annual meeting and this process that Ann McNeil has created, the McNeil factor. But I really, the first time I saw that, I really took that to task. And I start with, I've got a definite chief aim in life. I've defined what I want my life to be about when it's all over said and done. What am I trying to accomplish?
yeah,
And based upon that definite chief aim, I've created 10 objectives, 10 goals that if I'm successful with each of those goals will lead me to accomplishing that definite chief aim. And then for each of those 10 goals, I've broken it down into what are some sub goals that I can accomplish to help me realize each of those 10 goals. So it's almost like it's a stair step, it's a staircase leading to what I want my life to be about. And I've even gone as far as to create a tool, a hot sheet tool
yeah,
that will create daily tasks or scheduled tasks for me to accomplish. That if I can accomplish these tasks by the date that I've designated, then then it will hopefully lead me to, or probably lead me to, accomplishing everything that I've planned my life to be about. So that's the way I've tried to build this thing. And like I said, this thing is an evolution. I love the way you introduced that
yeah,
concept because some weeks I'm really good at it, some weeks I'm not. But that allows me to sit back and say, as I said at the top of the session, it allows me to say, okay, let me look at this list. Let me pick three things that I can accomplish relative to this list that will take me down the path of achieving my chief aim. So I don't know if that's right or wrong. I don't know if I'm doing it or not, but that's what I'm attempting to do, and those are the systems that I've put in place because without a system, again, I'm letting my inbox rule my life as opposed to my plan. What are some things that you seem to have success with leveraging?
yeah. I gotta go back to that and your question that you asked earlier about what I do on a daily basis. You got to plug that. You got to plug that hot sheet there, Galen, a little bit more, man. You're not doing yourself any justice about that because that's, if I'm not mistaken, is that available to the public yet?
I am moving into this place where it's going to be widely available, but we're building out a couple of beta test groups. So if you are interested in being part of this beta test group, then yeah, hit me up, drop me a line, either comment here or send me an email at Galen@killglobalcoaching.com, and we can make you part of a beta group. Look at my accountability partner pressing me and challenging me.
But here's why that's so important, though, Galen. And this goes to your question now. Here's where I don't do a good job in. At the beginning of every year, we do some great planning about what we want the year to look like, right? We work hard at that to identify, what our year, in this case, of course, 2022, what our goals are financially, personally. Ann McNeil really drives us into that annual meeting, which we'll talk about in just a little bit for sure. But now, if we break the year down into quarters, right? If we break it down into months, if we break it down into weeks, and then if we fine tune it into days and even hourly, how organized are we really? Right? And Galen asked me what my organized planning looks like on a regular basis. And yes, I do my best. First of all, I live by my calendar. So again, I have an assistant who really helps me with both my email and my calendar because my calendar is get very convoluted. I look to see what I have going on the next day. I I look to see what's priority that I need to get done the next day. And to Galen's credit, I don't want to add too much stuff to say I'm going to get 10 things done the next day, because that's unrealistic. Right. So I have a small list of 3 to 4 things. I try to keep them kind of small, but it's somewhat impactful. I say kind of small that they're not taking up hours and hours of time, but some things that I can really get done that will go a long way. From my perspective, I try to hand off to my assistant as much as I can so that I can be more impactful for the things that I really love to do. For you, what does that look like on a regular basis? How are you planning? I love how Johnny Lloyd said it. How are you planning the night before or even the morning of that day, right, in preparation for your day? Or are you just getting up in the morning and looking at your email, looking at social media, and just kind of letting the day take you? Ooh, that's a good question there, Galen. Are you managing and running your day, or is your day running or managing you?
Yeah, I
Um,
love the way Wyman put it. Wyman
yeah,
says, if you don't manage your email, it will manage you.
yeah,
If
yeah,
it manages you, you're mismanaging your time. So you're absolutely right. My calendar is my inbox is a terrible manager of my time. It's a terrible manager. It never accomplishes the things that I want to accomplish.
yeah,
It accomplishes the things that other people might want. One of the things that I learned very early on, right after school. I ran into this guy, and he was an executive coach. I didn't know what that was, but I signed up to work with him, paid him a crazy amount of money on a monthly basis. But one of the things that he shared with me, as I started getting more and more responsibility in corporate America at the time, I was doing just what you were guarding against, Peter. I wish I'd known you then. But I was letting my calendar, I was letting the urgent rule my time.
yeah,
And he said something that has stayed with me. He said, just because someone sends a request doesn't mean that it automatically makes your to-do list. Things should
mm,
earn their way onto your to-do list. And there should be a gestation period. There should be a period where, okay, I've received your request. Now we're gonna vet it and and find out whether it earns its way onto my to-do list. Just because
yeah.
you make the request doesn't mean that it earns its way onto my to-do list. And I really, really, that has stayed with me for a while. So yeah, things have to earn its way onto my top three to-do list for
Yeah.
the next day.
So let's go back. I love that. I love that. First of all, and this is a question for everybody from Galen's perspective. What's on your to-do list that should not be there? Right? What's on your to-do list that probably should not be there because you have other priorities? And this is a great conversation because it forces me back to your hot sheet there, Galen. Um, I need that to remind myself of the goals that I've given myself for the year. I need that regularly because I can get caught up in the day to day and forget about the big picture. Is anybody else like that except for me? I just want to hear because it's quiet in the chat. Is can anybody else? Does anybody else get caught up in your day to day and forget about the big audacious goals that you set for yourself for 2022? And I wonder what it would look like if those steps to get towards that goal were added to your day to day instead of you having to go back and realize, I didn't realize, I forgot I said I was going to do this year.
Yeah,
I wonder
hey,
what it looks like for our audience.
Dr. Peter, I'll add to that while everyone is typing in the chat. Uh,
Yeah.
Big audacious goals don't accomplish themselves. As a matter of
Mm,
fact, if your big audacious goal will just accomplish itself, it's probably not big enough.
mm,
So those big, massive, game-changing goals that we usually tag a word on the end of those big goals. We usually say, I want to accomplish this big, massive goal that will change the world. And we usually tag on the word someday. at the end of that. And it's even hard for me to say because I cringe every time I hear someone say someday. But those big someday goals, they get accomplished when you put effort, structure, systems, and focus around accomplishing them. They don't accomplish themselves. They remain in that someday category. Um, so, gosh, Wyman is saying yes, a combination of shiny object syndrome and squeaky wheel syndrome. Oh my gosh, is there anyone else who suffers from shiny object syndrome or squeaky wheel syndrome? Uh,
But I also love how Renette has says I use Monday mornings to plan my week. I also take time to plan my month and quarter before they start. That's so awesome. I love it. I love it. And this is for Renette and for myself. We plan it. Do we execute on it? Ooh, right? Do we execute on it? Because plans are just plans. But do we do something? Are we really taking action? As I speak a lot, and I've been talking a lot about awareness. Once you are aware of something, what then? What do the actions and the behaviors look like thereafter once you are aware of something? Because awareness is just the thought, the perception. What then? What then?
yeah, I want to go back to something that you that you highlighted at the top of this conversation. Is where is where Napoleon Hill talks about one of the first steps is to ally yourself with a group of as many people as you need for the
Yep.
creation and carrying out of your plan. That sounds like accountability. And so my question is, how important is accountability? It's one thing for me to say, this is the chief goal that I'd like to accomplish. These are the things that I want to do to lead to that chief goal. I can set up all kinds of systems for myself and say I'm only going to do these three things today. But if I don't have someone like a Dr. Peter James who's going to ask me, okay, Galen, how did you do with executing those three things? What else can you move off of your plate to get more focus? I'm probably going to shift back into that shiny wheel syndrome that Wyman talked about. How is it just me, Dr. Peter, or do you find other people kind of rely on and need that accountability to
Oh
make
my
that?
goodness. It's going back to the comment that I made earlier. We cannot do this alone. No, let me rephrase it. Let me phrase it how you said it. We can do this alone. We'll be just fine by it alone. But if just fine is not good enough for you, who is strengthening you? Who is sharpening your saw? Who is collaborating with you? Who is partnering with you? Who can you bounce ideas off of? Who can you say, hey, I got a thought here. What do you think about this? Am I off base? Who is who is that individual for you that holds you accountable as an adult? As a kid, we think of our kids and we are our accountability partner to our kids, right? But as an adult, who are you seeking out to be that accountability partner for you? And don't just say, oh, it's my wife or it's my husband, and they're not doing the job. Yeah, I'm gonna call everybody out on that. Don't just say it's my wife or my husband and they're not doing that job for you. They're not playing that role for you. And if you know you need even more than that, who is it for you? And how are they holding you accountable?
Well, hey,
And
if you get to call some people out, then I'm gonna add some fire to that.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
You could have some people in your life that's holding you accountable, but you haven't endorsed it, so you're not really paying attention. Your spouse is saying, look, you need to go do these two things if we're actually going to make this happen, but you're not listening to them. You've got to endorse and be on the same page as someone trying to help you accomplish these goals. That's why Napoleon Hill talks about finding like-minded people who are
Mm,
pursuing a similar goal. They don't have to be pursuing the exact same goal, but they have to be like-minded, pursuing a similar goal. and you've got to endorse that. You've got to sign on for that. That's why our bosses and our managers can tell us to do all kinds of things, and we'll kind of half do them, but we won't get fully invested because they're not there. We don't endorse that. We let the paycheck be the only reason that we're going to do these things that they're asking us. It's got to be something that you want to do. I don't know if I stepped on any toes with that.
No, that's good. That's good there, Galen. I love this one by Mr. Burcorp LLC came in and said, I received my letter to self from the annual meeting, and I can't believe how my face that was. I have to guard against being busy versus moving on purpose. Love that. Galen says planning without action is futile. Action without planning is fatal. Fatal. Yeah, that's Cornelius Fitchner who said that. So yeah, love the comments that are continuing to come in the chat about like-minded individuals. I called out everybody, especially some people will say, yeah, my wife does that, my husband does that for me. Do they really? I'm thinking about my wife. My wife will challenge me, but and I'm going to be very transparent with everybody. She's not challenging me like Galen challenges me. She's not challenging like others in my mastermind group challenge me. She plays her role. And actually, I tell you what she challenges me the most on, Galen, is because I'll get carried away with my work and my business life and all those things that you described earlier. And she'll say, hey, don't forget, you got a family here that you need to take care of. Right? So she keeps me honest from that perspective at all. She says, why aren't we on that to-do list, on the priority ahead of everything? And that's like a gut check right there, right?
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Well, then your wife will never ever talk to my wife ever because my wife is doing some of the similar things, but she'll also say, okay, you need to rest. When are you resting? Where's your recreation? What
Yeah.
about your health? When's the last time you had a physical? And I'm like, hey, wait a second, you're not my accountability partner. What are you doing here? But again, we have to endorse those things. We have to endorse those things, and we have to really buy into their being for, our good and our ability to achieve those things we say that we want to achieve in life. Because what's the good? I had this conversation with a client just last week. What's the purpose of making $20 million if you don't have your health? What's the purpose of having $20 million in the bank if you don't have a good relationship with your friends or with your family? What's the purpose of having $20 million in the bank if you're never taking vacation or doing anything fun to enjoy the money? It's always working. What's the value of having $20 million in the bank if you're working 150 hours a week in order to maintain that money? So this Think and Grow Rich process or philosophy, yeah, money is a part of it, but it's really about the totality of life.
Yeah. And Galen, I think we have someone who's given us a sneak peek who wants to join us today on this show. I don't know where she is in the world right now, but I think we got someone we're bringing in to the show right now. Do I who is that? Who is that? And where is she?
Good morning. Good morning. I just could not resist. I thought Peter was not going to be here this morning. And Doretha, I'm sorry. Good morning, everybody. Please forgive me. My apologies. We're actually in Dallas at the Better Investing Conference. Just got back from Africa late last night, but woke up this morning and said, oh my gosh, Peter's out. I'm out. Galen's going to be doing a masterclass all by himself. So since I know that Peter is here, Galen, I just want you to know we love you enough to let you go ahead and proceed with this program this morning. And good morning also to all of our listeners and everybody that's chiming in. The power of organized planning. This is what it looks like. We are here in Dallas at the Westin hosting a Better Investing Financial Empowerment Conference and a youth seminar. And it all started with an idea. It all started with a plan. And that plan has been organized and implemented over the last 50 plus years. to encourage, inspire, and to uplift individuals to have a better quality of life financially in every area of their life, starting with their financial investing. Just learning how to start with an investment club if you do it with your family or with a group of friends. But just remember that, you know, when we talk about think and grow rich, it starts with how much money do you want. So oftentimes we are taught how to make the money, but seldom are we taught how to make the money make money. So we're here today helping individuals and families learn how to make their money work for them as they work for the money. So Galen, Peter, I know y'all going to have a phenomenal program. Thankfully, we're an hour behind you. Our program starts at 8 o'clock, which is your 9 o'clock. So I'm going to chime off. And I know you're in good hands, Galen, because Peter is back and I'll be back next week. All right.
Fantastic. Great seeing you. Great seeing you.
All right. Thank you.
Be safe now. Take care.
All right. Thank you. All right.
You know, Galen, what I love about what she just mentioned there, you know, we're talking about this organized planning a lot, and we're thinking about it on a day-to-day, month-to-month, quarter-to-quarter, year by year. What does it look like to have organized planning financially? Ooh, you know, and Ann McNeil triggered that thought when she was talking about the better investing. What does organized planning look like for us financially? And I'm going to call out some stuff. Historically, for many families, for many communities, that has not been a thing that has been passed down for generation to generation. Being organized and being planning in your financial life, investments, savings, rainy day funds, you know, 401ks, all of this stuff there that's accessible to us, but we don't manage that effectively.
Right.
We let that kind of just run with it. And then when we get to a certain age, we're frustrated a little bit because we didn't do what we needed to do. So what can you do beginning today around that?
Yeah. Yeah. So abdication is not leadership. Abdication is not management. You can't abdicate management. You can't abdicate the planning around these elements that you say are important to you and expect to land in a good place. They just don't fit. So you're absolutely right. You know, one of the things, Dr. Peter, that we've mentioned a couple of times in this conversation alone is this annual meeting. Talk a little bit about this annual meeting that we and this McNeil factor that we keep talking about.
Yeah, good stuff. This, you know, let's start off where we went about accountability partners and masterminds and who's holding us accountable. And again, it's so important to find out who that is for you on a regular basis, day to day, week by week, month by month. But from a yearly perspective, Galen and I are blessed enough to be able to participate in an annual meeting that is held every year in Boca Raton, Florida, that Ann McNeil spearheads with the Think and Grow Rich Foundation, that talks about planning not just for that year that's coming up, but for subsequent years. And again, we're not just planning financially. We're looking at, Galen, correct me if I'm wrong, 11 or 12 areas of our lives that we are looking at to plan for that year, but also for the future. And Galen steps his game up every single year and has a thick book that he is a PowerPoint that he is demonstrating his planning for that year and also for the future. And so now he has challenged me to step up to that as well, and planning strategically from an organization perspective for my life. We don't do this type of stuff on a regular basis. Instead, we let life just happen. We respond and react to what occurs. I wonder if we can be more proactive in our planning from, again, day to day, week to week, month to month, year to year.
Yeah.
If we can bring that image back one more time there, just so that people can see it, people can see the dates, they can mark it on their calendar. I think Galen and I are up in the back there somewhere, Galen, as well, January 6th through 7th. on 2023. I haven't bought my tickets yet, Galen. Have you bought yours already?
Yeah, you got to take advantage of those low fares when you can get them, man.
Yeah, that too, right?
Yeah, this is the seminal event of the year for you
Yeah.
to get to set your goals and to put real structure around those goals. And Miss Ann has you plan in 10 areas. The first being spiritual, family, financial, health, educational, personal development,
Hmm.
business and career, recreational, civic, and creativity. You gotta build your plan for making each of your goals a reality in all 10 of those areas. And I'll tell you, the first time I came, I was really, really proud of my plan, but it was all heavily geared toward career and business. I had a very, very detailed career and business plan, but I didn't have anything for family. Back to what your
Yeah.
wife's comments. I didn't have any plan for my family. I didn't have any plan for recreation. Back to my wife's comments. I had kind of a plan for civic, kind of a plan for education, no plan for health, sort of a plan for financial. But I'm gonna tell you, that was one of those things that I just kind of said it and I forgot it. Right? I was just kind of expecting magical things to happen. And then I had really no plan for spiritual. And
Mm,
it was that first year that really challenged me to really put as much effort into planning for all elements of my life as I put into planning for a business's strategic plan. If a business or a client asks me to build a strategic plan for them, I have no problems doing that. But when it comes time to building a strategic plan for myself, I was lacking. And that's what that first meeting highlighted for me. And now, to your point, Peter, I've built out an entire app that will help me not only plan for those 10 areas, but actually put some accountability into making sure
mm.
I'm executing against everything that I said that I would do against those 10 areas. So really, really worth the investment.
Yeah, such a good stuff. You also triggered something in me for our health. How are you? How are we planning? How well of a job are we doing planning our health
Mm,
and not just exercise, right? Our diets. What are we before you go to the grocery store? I'm hoping you make out a list. But now we do that. That's easy to do, but I wonder if we can be more strategic around that list that we go to the grocery store so that we can make sure that we are picking up only the stuff that is going to benefit our bodies and not just picking up stuff to pick up stuff and sticking to that list. It's one thing to have the awareness, the actions and the behaviors have to follow suit. Now, are you sticking to it? Are low doubling down on those chips and those snacks? Am I calling somebody out, Galen? Or
oh my gosh.
am I getting am I hurting people on their hot? But this is a thing though. I hear I'm gonna make a I'm gonna be self deprecating to a certain extent. So I had my measurements taken yesterday, and it was from a guy who was fitting me for a suit, and he said, "Oh, last time I got fitted for a suit was 2019. We've had a pandemic since then." He told me, "Yeah, you put on 2 inches around your waist."
Oof.
Right. So, how can I? Yeah, it really was a gut punch to me, and um, just horribly. But now, based on even this conversation, I got to do some organized planning here.
Yeah, I mean, those things never accomplish themselves. They never ever accomplish themselves. And I think that this conversation, I like the way that we've gotten really, really tactical around what are the things that you're doing on a daily, weekly, or monthly basis
Yeah.
to make this a reality. Whatever your goal is, I tell my clients all the time, I'm not going to tell you what should be important to you. I barely got my own life figured out. But once you decide that something is important to you, what structures do you put in place? What systems do you put in place
Yeah.
to give yourself a chance at accomplishing those things that you say are important to you? So, one of the things, and we talked about this also, one of the things that I do is I hang out with Dr. Peter. He and I connect sometimes twice a week on just kind of checking to make sure that we're doing the things that we say that we're going to do. So I would highly endorse you connecting with Dr. Peter if you're looking for some strong accountability. Dr. Peter, how can people get a hold of you, and what are some things that you've captured as ahas from this conversation?
Yeah, let's start with the ahas. One of the things, I know we're talking a lot about annual meetings and masterminds and things like that. We're getting ready to, and this is for everybody, we're getting ready to eclipse the midpoint of the year, right? The end of the 6 month period, and going into the second half. And I got to ask everybody, how's the year going for you? How's the year going for you? And if it's not quite how you wanted it to go, how can you shift your plans, organized planning? How can we shift our plans to ensure that the second half is better than the first? Right? So, what things do you need to begin to put into place? Some things that we've spoken about today that you can begin to put into place for the second half of the year in order to make it. And listen, not just putting it in place, but then also checking yourself on it, having an accountability partner, a mastermind, doing this organized planning and executing in order to accomplish what you need to accomplish. Again, it doesn't have to just be financially, but in various areas of your life. Honestly, for me, one of mine for the second half in the year is get down at least an inch off this waist, right? But at the same time, what does that look like for you, right? And who is holding you accountable to it? Huge. So yeah, to Galen's question, my name is Dr. Peter A. James. I am the high performance coach, helping you to shift your mindset. You can find me on any social media platform, primarily LinkedIn at Dr. Peter A. James, or you can find me at shiftyourmindset.com. I'm going to ask you, how are you shifting your mindset? How, as a result of this show today, might you be able to shift the narrative, shift your mindset just a little bit to incorporate either organized planning or the accountability partner or a mastermind or that annual accountability meeting? So many gems, so many pearls. Even Ann McNeil came in and talked about the investments today. What does that look like for you in your life? Again, sometimes the needle doesn't have to be shifted a lot, but if it's just shifted a little bit, what kind of difference will that make in your life? Galen, it's a lot of stuff we spoke. I got a lot of gems today.
Hey, I'm gonna put some people. I'm gonna make some people accountable here. What are some things that you took from what Dr. Peter just shared? What are some things that you took from this conversation that you're going to put into action? It's one thing for us to come here every Saturday morning and share all these incredible insights with you from all of our guests, and for us to challenge you with doing something differently. But I want to hear from you. What's something that you're going to do differently, or do more, or do better? What shift are you going to focus on making because of today's conversation? Put that in the chat. I want to hear from you. And again, this has been a great conversation because one of the things you reminded me of the importance of being tactical, of actually putting some things on your to-do list, putting some things on your calendar to be accomplished. Because if you just allow your day to manage you, your calendar is going to do a terrible job of managing you to your goals. And just like Wyman said, I loved your analogy of going throughout your life without a plan. It's like going to the grocery store without a shopping list. Yeah, you'll fill up your cart, you'll come out with some stuff, but will it be the right stuff? Will it be the right things? Will it be what you need to have? Or will you just have a cart full of stuff? And I'm going to tell you, when I go to the grocery store without a list, I come back with a whole lot more potato chips and donuts and ice cream.
Me
But when
too.
I've got that list, I might still slip in a potato chip every now and then, but the list of things that I decided that I needed, I've got
Mhm.
a better chance of bringing that back home. Renetta Gordon says that she needs to shift her mindset. She needs a coach to keep her accountable. She'll
Nice.
start looking. Well, you're looking at two coaches right here on the screen. And yeah, so keep these comments coming in. My name is Galen Bingham. I am the leadership strategist. I am a coach, but I'm more than a coach. I'm a consultant, but I'm more than a consultant. I've got 30 years of experience in corporate America, but I bring more than that to helping you get from where you are to where you want to be. And if you want to have access or get information about this hot sheet beta test that I'm building, definitely send me an email to Galen at killglobalcoaching.com. That is GALEN at KILN globalcoaching.com. And just mention you've heard this conversation. You want to understand more about this hot sheet app, and I'll get you set up, and we'll make you get you part of this beta test. There are so many different ways to get a hold of me and get in touch with me. The most fun way, however, is by listening to my podcast, Whiskey, Jazz, and Leadership. We are on all podcast platforms. We're also on Audible, and it's a free podcast. We talk to leaders from every industry. We talk about the whiskeys they drink, the music that they listen to, and what it really takes to be an effective leader. I double dog dare you to try us just once. We are having so much fun sharing lots of wisdom. And like I said, would love to have you become part of that community. So again, another great conversation. We're closing
Yeah.
out this conversation on organized planning. We got Dr. Peter James back from Dubai. We've got Miss Ann McNeil back from her African tour, and she's in Dallas. It seems like everyone has been doing some traveling except for me. So I need to do some traveling and go to the African continent myself. Any final words from you, Dr. Peter, before we bid adieu until the next time?
I was just thinking, my daughter, I have a daughter who just moved to New York recently, and those of you who've been to the city or New York City or any big city, it's very easy for the environment to drive you to kind of suck you in. And so one of my things that I said to her, I got in her ear and I said, "Hey, listen, New York can drive you or suck you in. You have to manage it. You have to drive that. You have to stay ahead of it to a certain extent. And what is that going to look like for you as you move forward?" So now that's my challenge to everyone. Life can do that for us. So how are you planning it, managing it, and driving it instead of the other way around?
Mm.
Because there's so many inputs that we get on a regular basis. It's easy for us to just go on autopilot and take that wheel back, Galen.
Yeah, I love it. I love it. I love it. Thank you for coming back safely and for being part of this conversation, Dr. Peter. I also want to thank Imelda Wallace for joining in. She's always a regular. So is Johnny
Nice.
Lloyd. Renetta Gordon, thank you so much. Definitely reach out if you want to hear more about this hot sheet. I got Radisha
Radisha, yeah.
Radisha Francis. I am so sorry about butchering your name there. Wyman Winbush, always in the chats. The Wisdom Broker is always in the chats. Burke Corp, thank you so much. Please join us each and every Saturday morning at 8 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. We're going to have another amazing guest next week, so please join us as we move into the next chapter of this principle. We are committed to having you think and grow rich and realize your dreams, your goals for your life. How do we do this thing on purpose? How do we do this life thing on purpose? That is our mission, and we are just so excited to have you along for the ride. So please subscribe, share with friends, and make sure that you bring someone back to this conversation next week. Until next time, take care.